Thank you for joining us. I know a lot of my listeners miss not only your voice, but a male's perspective. Today, we are tackling a very difficult topic, unconditional love. And if it exists, like I had mentioned previously, this episode was motivated by Will Smith's interview. When I heard the short clip, I started asking myself, what is unconditional love? Because he centered it around forgiveness. So, do you think the saying, forgive someone 77 times and more is the recipe or the foundation of unconditional love? So, before we dive in to the topic, would you like to say hi to my Unspoken Truth listeners?
Hi, listeners. How you guys doing? It's been forever, and we're back again with another interesting topic. I hope you guys stayed in tune and you guys have been staying safe out there. So yeah, let's get into it.
So let's get into it. So, X, does unconditional love exist? Or the first question is, what is unconditional love? What's your take?
Unconditional love. Yeah, unconditional love for me is forgiveness is the major thing, you know. You have to constantly be aware of the next person's feelings, consider yours too, you know, but at the same time you constantly learning each other. And love is that, it's learning from, I mean, you look at a mother's love to their child. The mother is always learning from the child. The child does not even know what love is, but they live in it. So, and the mother constantly is forgiving and showing love and appreciation to the child. So that's I think love is just, you know, it's an expression of how you as a being should be. You look at animals in the wild, they express nothing but love without even saying it. You just see from the actions, you see it from, you know, just how they hang and chill together. So love is not counting mistakes, not counting how many times you've been hurt. You know, love is uncontained. Love is broad. There's so much love out there that a single person can give out to so many people. Like, you know, in a family, there's mother, there is brother, there's grand, there's uncle, there's all these people, and they all share certain aspects of love. But love is the main ingredient in everything. You know, maybe you might not be speaking to them today, but tomorrow, you know, you'll flip around. If you take it any other way, then, you know, you are conditioning the love. You are boxing it in because of expectations, because of, you know, just the person not moving according to the way you want. So it might not always be that. So you have to just let go. Love is just letting go and letting it be what it is, you know?
That's my take. True. I like how you covered all the aspects of love, considering platonic love. So today, this episode, we're not going to talk about platonic love. We're not going to talk about the love of a mother and a child, the love of a parent. Today, we're talking about the love of couples. So I came through something that was written. We all know how to use Google, but I found there's something in this statement that made me think, this is interesting. It says, unconditional love is known as affection without any limitations, right? Or love without conditions. This term sometimes is associated with other terms, such as true altruism or complete love. Each area of expertise has a certain way of describing unconditional love, but most will agree that that type of love, which has no bounds and is unchanging. And it got me where it says, without any limitation, it has no bounds, and it is unchanging, meaning it's consistent. There's no I love you less, and it's there. So when I heard that it's no bounds and it's unchanging, then it raised the question of, if in relationships people have unconditional love, right? And it sees no bounds and it's unchanging, right? What then what makes people fall out of love, right? Because if it's unconditional and we're saying that it exists, that it sees no bounds, what is it that makes people fall out of it? Because how do you fall out of love with somebody when it's unchanging, when it's consistent? What's your
society, the pressures of society? There's just so much being thrown to your subconscious that you level yourself up in standards. There's just a whole lot of boxes out here. So if you end up being enticed by a certain box, you might lose focus on what the truth is or what it is, because you're trying to live up to a certain standard. And in that standard, it seems unconditional love might not even be there. You know what I mean? So if you move from the core of what it is and not allow it to be what it is, then you're going to follow a certain standard that you're still trying to figure out what is what in that standard. And, like, I'd give you another example to say spies. Spies are not allowed to fall in love with anyone, because if they do, then it becomes a weakness. You always know where to get them. You always know how to get them, so they never fall in love because there's a standard that they are trying to live according to, and that a standard does not allow love to be in there. So if you allow yourself to, it's a weakness. It's a weakness, it's a strength, it's so much. It just depends on if you're allowing it to be what it is. Because if you start boxing it into some sort of category, then it just gets tainted. It switches, it changes. It's able to adjust to any kind of thing. It's like water. But the question is, are you allowing it to be whatever form and shape it's, trying to flip into?
Yes. So there's something he also touched on. I mean, that clip was a 3-minute clip, but he said, I hope my family's mistakes can teach the world unconditional love. A lot of people bashed Will Smith because of what they did in their house had come out into the public. He was content with what had happened and he had moved on, because people made it seem like it was current, but it's something that had happened a long time ago. And they made him feel some type of way, like you say, in society, that who would stay? Why would you stay if somebody that you say you have loved so much hurt you this much, right? So then it took me back to this whole thing. Did our parents have unconditional love? Are we saying that begezela is unconditional love? Are we saying turn a blind eye? Is that unconditional love? Because another thing that I've noticed as women, and I'm not going to speak for all women, but as women, we have tendencies of sharing conversations about our relationships with each other, where something is not working right or something is going wrong. We're always going to come in a group and we're going to talk and whatever. And the one thing that I picked up, I think, over the years, and now that I'm in my 30s, I realized sometimes minimize what you tell your friends because it influences your actions, right? So as girls, you'd hear, but you know what, I got bitch, right? And then it becomes a whole topic. Now they're like, oh, but she's not worthy, right? And already that means you're putting limitations to these relationships because of expectations. So are we saying that when we remove expectations, we remove limitations? So loving a person as they are, not with what they have. If that makes sense. Is unconditional love literally loving the person's existence, not what they come with?
Yeah. No, exactly. That's it. That's what it is. I mean, unless you fell in love with whatever they're coming with, then it's a different story. But if you know the person and the spirit or the being themselves, then it's a different case, because you don't even measure or count the failures, flops. All you're trying to do is just be in the same loving space with that person, because that's how you feel.
Yeah.
That's how you feel. That's where you feel a sense of fulfillment, because it has so much fulfillment when you're in a very good space with that person. You know what I mean? And you're not supposed to even get validation from people about love, because we all experience it so differently. If you sometimes looking for advice, then you find that those people inflict their past experiences on you, and then you are going to judge those experiences and then try and level them up with your life, and you just probably haven't even been through that. So you should never. I feel personally. I think even with us guys, we don't have conversations about love as guys. Like, yo, man, I love this girl, like this, like, I don't think we have those, but we as guys know when somebody's in love. Like, yeah, that's your girl, man. Yeah, that's my girl. Yeah, and then you be like, okay, you see it, and you see how they move, and you start to realize and respect how they move, without really influencing it, but yeah, I think with love, you should never seek validation, because it comes in all shapes and forms. So you just have to be there and live it as it is, as raw as it is. If you're going to add any other outside influence into what it is, it's like mixing water with oros. You won't get,
won't get fancy. So, you touched on something quite important when you said, as guys, we do not talk about love, because males are logical thinkers and women are emotional beings. So does unconditional love exist in the male world, because you're logical thinkers? So what is unconditional love as a guy? What is it where you say that this person is giving me unconditional love? What do you expect as unconditional love? What do you give as unconditional love? Because you are beings that don't know how to express your emotions. You are beings that don't even talk about emotions. So then how would you then know that you will be able to love this person unconditionally? So hold that thought. Then I'm going to add this also on top. I know a couple that were married a good 5 years. And whoever's listening to this, I'm sorry, I'm not going to mention names, but you know yourselves. In those 5 years, as they were married, they didn't have sex, right? Not at all. So maybe when they dated, but then in the 5 years of marriage, there was no sex because she didn't want it and she felt sick or whatever the reason might be. But the guy stuck there, stayed in the relationship 5 years strong. Would you call that unconditional love? Or would you say, as Abafana Bashobati, Ushaiwe paint? Because your guys are logical thinkers. How is it operating? How is this relationship operating? Because
look, it was love. It's been love, and it's always love because he's there. If he, and the guys probably don't even know that he's not getting laid. If they do, then they will, start throwing out scams like that. Yeah, you whipped or this, that, and you should be moving on. But he's not there for the sex, clearly. It plays a major role. It plays a major role, don't get me wrong, but that's not his focus in that, unless, the dynamics have changed and he's there because of love, she was there because of sex, but she's, not giving it to him because he's probably not the right person. You never know, but they are there and they're existing in the same space for 5 years. Showing and expressing it in so many different ways besides physical. Yes. So it's that's what I mean. Like, that's love. Like, love does not need you to be kissing every day for you to show that you love. You know what I mean? Doesn't need hugs every day. Doesn't need. So it's there. You have to acknowledge and just live through the love itself. Whatever it shapes into, you are there to experience it. I think there's no limit to what is happening there in that very situation. If he was a person who dwelled in outside influence, he'd probably been long gone, because people will be like, nah, man, what are you still doing there? Because in the outside world, as guys, when we talk, probably sex is just the main thing. Any other thing about love or relationships is not, such a big
Not the
thing to us.
topic.
It's never the topic. So if he's never shared that with his friends, then he's experiencing love unconditionally with his partner, But then if he does, then he's going against his acknowledgement of the love. He's weighing that against other people's inflicted doubts, and some people have been cheated on, some people have just gotten their heart broken, and he just shared that with them. The response they're gonna get is negative, rather, because these people are going through whatever they're going through, and for you to get a clear understanding is when they tell you and inflict those doubts and negativity on you, so that you understand where they're coming from. But you have to see it. If you don't see it, you're going to take that away and then go destroy your own love.
Yeah. There's so many things that you mentioned, and I'm just like, so why is it? I believe that women, can offer unconditional love. I think they can. And I'm going to say quite a majority of a percentage of women can give unconditional love without it being materialistic, without it being anything. It could just generally be love. But now, because men are logical thinkers, why is it so hard for men to forgive a woman when she cheats, but it's easy for a woman to forgive a man when he cheats? Why do men find it so hard to wrap their head around cheating, but still say, I love this girl, but I can't be in the relationship because you cheated? Because already a lot of men struggle. This is common to men. Men, they can stick, but after a couple of years, they will come back to that point.
Yeah, it's a society. It's just the way we are as humans, I guess, especially in this day and time, because there's certain words you can call a female that won't apply to a male, and then we grow and we go through love in a very different manner, where, hence I say we hardly share, because once we share, then you could be called all sorts of names for whatever reason, and I think there are guys that have actually do actually forgive women who cheated. It's just that they don't speak, because you speak about it, then you look like a fool to the guys, So hence I'm saying that you have to always be careful on what you share with the guys when you are with the guys, because some of these things actually are home for you. And you if you allow somebody else to come into your home and just tell you this and that, it just spoils everything. It won't feel like home anymore. You're going to doubt that it's home, and you're probably going to leave. You know what I mean? I know one person that actually forgave their partner for cheating on them. And it wasn't easy for that person, but they did it. And I was amazed at how they did it, because it was like, okay, so you're sticking it through? I'm sticking it through. So what? And then I waited. On my side is what? So probably you're staying because you love her that much. And at the same time, you probably cheated. And then she stayed. And then now you're feeling like, okay, yeah, it becomes an even thing, and it should not be repetitive, because then it fucks you guys up. Sorry for my language. And then, but I think, hence I'm saying that it all depends on what you're sharing, with whom you're sharing, because at the end of the day, the decision is on you, whether you want to stay or not. Because people can tell you that, no, she's not right for you, she cheated, and it could be her first time cheating. And, are you just going to bounce? Sometimes you think about these things. Are you just going to bounce and just let probably 5-6 years go because she did it once? You know what I mean? Sometimes you probably got caught 3-4 times. She just did it once. So what happens then? You know, you just have to sit there and really think about the love that you have built. And I mean, with communication, that's another thing. Love also exists on that. So if that is not communicated verbally or any other way, then it becomes hard for someone to actually really gauge whether you are in love or not. But love is there. You know what I mean? It's there. It's there.
You know,
You
they
just have to
say that yonke emoshwa umlomo ilungiswa ngomlomo. So anything that is messed up through spoken word communication can be fixed with spoken word and communication. So now we're in this generation of, some of us, our kids were born in the 80s, but relationships, most of our relationships are struggling. Most our peers are divorcing. Most of the people we know are even single, and they are like anti-relationship. These people, I feel like they have lost the hope for love in itself, or maybe they have never really experienced unconditional love. So from everything that we're speaking about, we're saying that it is there and it exists. But how do people attain it? Because now, you know, I'm listening to you, and it seems like the male perspective has a lot of forces of friendships and silos. So you're so much alone that you can't talk about the one thing that hurts you the most, so that you can move from it and move forward, right? So am I safe to say the reason why relationships are not working, or the reason why most relationships are suffering and they are not getting this whole unconditional thing, is because men are silos? Can we push it back to men and say, because men don't know how to love, because men don't know how to communicate, because men this? Can we push it back? Because a lot of people who are crying are women and less men.
Well, you don't see it when a man cries. That's the other thing. Like, we were told, growing up as a man, you're not supposed to be seen crying. You know what I mean? Or being all emo. You're not supposed to show any of those signs. But I think we also find comfort in having a close friend, one or two that you are able to speak to and let them know this is what's up, you know, and they will hear you out. Some just listen, some will just probably make jokes about it. But I feel like when you are raised in a family where there's a mother and a father, you know how to love. If you are raised if you are raised by women alone, you know how to love. It's just, if you're a guy and raised by women, you just have to almost contain your emotions differently, because from what you're experiencing at home and what you are going through outside is two different things, you know? And then you start almost adapting and learning that, I can't be sharing 1, 2, 3 with my family because they're all female. And then you start adapting to how the male needs to move. But you know and understand what I think people, especially guys that were raised by women, are softies, if I can put it that way, because every woman around is expressing different kinds of love, and women contain more love than guys do, you know. So you end up growing up and actually understanding the concept of love. But if you are raised and by probably just your pops, he'll show you love from the extent of guys. And it's not like your pops will teach you how to make a woman, or no, it's just gonna end there. Now, there's certain things that you're not supposed to be emotional about, there's certain things that you are, that's it. And then that's it. You know what I mean? And then the rest you're just gonna go out and discover by yourself, and you're learning until you meet up with somebody who probably, sometimes you're lucky enough to meet somebody who has never gotten their hearts broken or been in a very crappy situation in a relationship. And you'd find that relationship would last a very long time if you guys are on the same page. But if there was hurt, disappointments and stuff involved, then it's more challenging for the relationship because everybody has their own perspective of what the kind of love they either come from or they want. So if you don't communicate what kind of love you want to build, and I mean, love is there forever. People that ditch, I will always ditch love. Because they're not trying to understand what love is. They're just trying to move on to the next and see if they can get something similar to that. But you'll never find similar, You'll never find similar. So it's
so what is unconditional love for the male species? What does the male species want to receive as unconditional love? And what would they want to give as unconditional love? Because it's got no bounds and it's unchanging. Because I think the one thing I'm trying to struggle with is that our generation is really struggling in adapting to unconditional love. I feel like our parents kind of understood it because no matter how tough it went, they were there through the thick and thin, riches or poor, Because I would spend so many minutes or whatever on TikTok, and you hear men saying, are women who want to wake up and cook and clean and take care of their men, do they still exist, right? And every time I see such videos, I'm like, yes, they do still exist. They are out there. But it seems like men have you want something in theory, but you'd rather have a bad bitch. In theory, I want a person who cooks, cleans, does this, because maybe to you guys, that's an unconditional love. That's how it's shown. The person is doing so much for you. They are your caretaker, your caregiver. But once you have that, you'd shift and want a bad bitch, all right? You want somebody who does nothing like that. Funny slave queen, whatever the case might be. So I'm trying to understand is that what constitutes love that is unchanging for men, for them to stick into a relationship, for them to stay? What do you think that is generically for guys? You've spoken to guys, you've got friends, you know.
Standards. It's just society standards. It always goes back to the kind of influence that is out there. Because you can be home, happy at home and have your thing, and then you step outside and then you find all sorts of flavors of whatever and still be like, nah, I've got something at home. And then the guys are like, man, try this. This is nice. Try this. You know what I mean? And it's all on you, whether you understand yourself or not. Because when you don't, then you're going to go wherever the wind blows, Yeah, I mean, like our parents, great grandmothers, whatever, the old generation has understood the concept of family. They understood love is family, is being more than one with everyone. And, that's as unconditional as it is. They understand it from marriage perspective to the children's perspective. And they are able to constantly keep it together. Nowadays, the generations that we have, or where we're at now, there's options. People have got a right to now get married today and get divorced tomorrow because there's options. Those options are not there. We don't even know whether they would have even taken those options if they were there back then, because they were raised different. We have options, they don't. And the options that we have are advertised every day. So it's easy for you to think of a divorce because you're seeing it down the newspaper, hearing it on the radio, they're advertising the lawyer, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So
it's accessible.
The information right now is so accessible and convenient for anybody to be influenced easily. It's all on whether you know yourself or not. Because if you don't know yourself...
So how do you love someone unconditionally? What's your take? How do you love somebody unconditionally? When you wake up in the morning, how do you choose to love them unconditionally?
Showing up. Because there's showing up, it's being there, it's calling, it's just being there. Like I think there's situations where you find yourself in love with someone for so long that you'd go 2-3 years without seeing that person, but it's still there because you guys have been talking, you guys have been texting now and again, not as often as a relationship, but it's managed to keep life throughout the years. And then when you meet up for the first time, or for that time when you meet up, it's going to be even more stronger because it's been communicated, it's word, and now it's just meeting the physical. So it's just showing up and just making sure that you're there. You have to be there. That's how you show love. You might not talk after 2 years, but if you believe and know what love is, when you meet each other for the first time after that 2 years, you'll still feel it. There won't be animosity unless the other one has decided, this is no longer my friend. But you would genuinely be there, be like, hey, how you doing? And then you get that look. The look will always tell you whether you guys are still in love or not. You know what I mean? Half the time. Because it's energy. It's that. Especially when it's separated for a very long time and then it comes back. So it's
unchanging. It has no bounds. It's unchanging. It has no bounds. I don't know if I speak for all ladies, but from the little conversations I have, be it with sisters, friends, cousins, one thing that has stayed consistent is that women are selfless, right? Women are very selfless. They pour so much of themselves until there's nothing left, right? So we are creatures that can nurture and give so much of ourselves. That's why we find it easy to love even when somebody has cheated 100 times. That's why we find it easy to stay even in abusive relationships, because we keep on pouring out, we keep on being selfless. We it's that love you're saying that it's always there. It's like a lot of women see it the way it is and they stick in these relationships. And I'm not condoning abusive relationships, but all I'm trying to say is maybe we need to sit down and actually think of it this way. Loving somebody is being okay with knowing when to put yourself first and putting them also first, right? Loving them first, you said, is showing up. And even in the showing up, it's not just showing up in the physical or whatever, but it's also showing up even in the darkest of times, right? When I say darkest of times, this means loving a person whether they have a job, whether they've got money, whether the job sucks, whether they end up in a wheelchair, right? Whatever the case might be, it's just always being able to be selfless enough to hold on to it. So I think, because when I saw the question on how do you love someone unconditionally, I was like, it's tough. Let's be honest. It's easy for us to talk about all these glorious things, but when we are in a relationship, fuck that nigga, I'm burning his shit down, right? But how do we then contain ourselves and go back to that love? How do we see past, how do we see past the hurt? How do we see past the arguments? How do we see past all these unnecessary? Because one thing I've noticed about a lot of relationships is that even when I hear people talk, it's always the little things that make a big thing. Like people can fight about ushia, spoon, iskatu, whatever. And then you ask yourself, is this the reason? He didn't show up to take me out on a date. Is that the reason? Or is there something else that's missing? So I feel like unconditional love is tapping into understanding everything that might be missing. Because it's not about the spoon. It's not about the shoe. It's not about not showing up. What is it that is being missing? Because another thing I noticed with a lot of guys is they do not know how to reassure, right? In unconditional love, there's reassurance that is needed. I love you and I'll always love you. There's reassurance of you are the girl I've loved, you beautiful, you this. But guys forget to reassure the love of their lives. Hence, one little fight becomes a big fight. It was never about that you didn't want to eat my food that I cooked. It's about forgetting how you used to say, oh, babe, when you cook, Jesus Christ, you know, you're better than my mama, you know. But it's those, and it's those little things that are missing in relationships that make unconditional love bearable. Let me put it that way. They become quite bearable. Reassurance, and even in reassurance, even reassuring yourself, which, okay, I'm here, and what does this mean for me? Why am I? Because there's another thing that I learned for myself where I said, I always go to the mirror and I say, why did I choose you? And half the time I'm speaking to myself. And after I have answered myself, I then ask myself, why did I choose him? And I need to have an answer for that. Because when you do that, then every time there's something wrong, you remember why you're there. You remember why you are in love in the first place. There's something I started a while back. And for me, it has been working. And I hope a lot of ladies who are listening to this can try it. Every little message that is so sweet sent by your partner, save it. Save it. Put a whole archive of the most sweetest things that this guy has said to you. Voice notes, messages. Have a whole thing. And the day you fight, go back to all those messages. And you will tell me how your heart will feel. Because that anger becomes, yeah, but he cute though. You know, he ain't though. You know, I think it's just coming back to ourselves. It's coming back to ourselves and realizing why we chose to be where we are. And every time you ask yourself that, it makes it easier to love somebody unconditionally. Because no matter what happens, I mean, like what the vows say, through sickness and health and whatever, it makes you always remember why you chose them. And you must always ask yourself, because I do that, why did I choose me? And then it's easy for me to choose the next person. Because whatever they saw in me, it's worth fighting for. And whatever I saw in them, it's worth fighting for. So that's my take on how do you show somebody unconditional love. It's always remembering why you decided to be there in the first place. Okay. I can go on and on and on about love. I can preach, but generally, I hope a lot of women heard this. I don't want to prolong it. I do not want us to go so much into detail, but I'm speaking to all these girls that are heartbroken. I'm speaking to that sister of mine who is giving up on love, who feels like it doesn't exist. You know, my younger sister once said to me, I'm done. And I laugh and I'm like, girl, you're not even in your mid-20s. Sit yourself down, you know? And I'm like, there isn't being done. It's not about being done with love, but it's understanding. And I think it goes back to what you said, X, understanding the shape it takes. Be like water. If it's in a glass, understand that shape. If it's in a bathtub, understand that shape, right? And then maybe when we start understanding the reasons why we put ourselves in the relationships, the reason why we love them, and doing a little exercise on reminding ourselves why we love these people. So I've said a mouthful, right? And this is for all the women. But I wanted X to close this whole thing down for us and give women out there, the single women who are like, hey, Mjolo Yanisa, hey, whatever. I want you to give this women hope from a man to women. So today you're going to be representing every man out there. I'm sorry, the burden is too much, right? You are going to be carrying a whole bag. But I want you to speak for all men, even the men that are going to listen to this episode. What is it that they need to do to stay afloat in the relationship, to show unconditional love? What are you saying to these girls out there like that want to hear this? What must they do? Are they supposed to slay every day? How do they show up for their man? How do they love him for him to understand this is so unconditional? So what's your message to my women out there? Give them hope again. Make them love again. Please, X.
Well, I think first thing is communication. You have to speak about almost everything so that there is no room for second guessing and doubt. And you'd even be able to easily spot irritation when somebody's irritated about something or your partner's irritated about something. Because you know everything, then it'll be easy for you to be like, just calm the person down or just let them understand that this was 1, 2, 3. Because without communication, a lot of things go sideways, You don't want to live on speculations, especially when you're trying to build something solid, So communication from both sides, but especially the women. They need to communicate because guys can't guess really half the time what's going on. So there's that. And I think, love, don't seek validation when it comes to love. Don't go out there trying to compare what you have with the next person. Because they could be going through the worst. And when they come out here, the world is their stage, looking up in makeup, suits, and you think everything is all good, but it might not be because that's just what it is. Don't seek validation. You can share the love with the world, but don't wait for them to say, hey, great job, you're in love. Nobody got time for that. You know what I mean? Enjoy love for what it is. Show up, share messages, show that you care. Just be in love. Just let it be, Just let it be. That's what it is. That's my final message for you all.
Thank you so much, X. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for spending time with us. And this is not our last episode. Our last episode is episode 11, which is the public service announcement, which is loaded and ready, but only coming out on the 20th of December. So, like I always say, follow me on Instagram and subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I am Nita Terry T, your host of Unspoken Truth. Until the next episode, remember, everything in life comes with divine order, divine timing, and divine presence, and always surrounded by divine spirit. Dear you, you're going to be just fine. I thank you.
The Unspoken Truth is the catalyst for important and thought-provoking conversations that need to be had. The network tackles social ills, spiritual healing, soul-searching, and mental health awareness. To subscribe, click on the show link to follow our podcast and be part of the Unspoken Truth family. Find us on all social media platforms.